Hi, welcome back to Book Buzz with Jen and Payne, a podcast where we talk about romance books, our current reads, and we also have the pleasure of sitting down with some of our favorite authors and chatting with them about their amazing books.
I'm very nervous. I'm sweating.
I am too. I'm not sweating because it's freaking cold. So
it is crazy. It is such an honor that we're going to be chatting with Jodi and Malpas. I remember when we first started the podcast, I thought it was going to be impossible to get her on here. And I think we even made a comment like, oh, I wish we could like talk to her, but I don't know, it's going to be hard or if it's going to be possible. So it's such a dream come true and an honor to have her here with us. And I'm so excited to talk about the Enigma the Forbidden. I love that book. That book was the first book I read of hers.
Well, mine was This Man.
Of course. And I finished This Man, and I have so many questions that I'm not going to ask her because I'm going to wait until I finish the whole series. Mm-hmm. But I loved it. I know I mentioned that I had tried reading it in the past, but I put it down for some reason and now I picked it back up. I know I'm a little late in the game, but I loved it. Jesse Ward he's something else. I'm just going to say he is something else, but I love that possessive stalker man.
Yes.
So it's such an honor to have New York Times bestselling author Jodi Malpas with us. She just did, like I mentioned earlier, released the Enigma recently, which is a book about a fatal blend of revenge and desire. And it's also, I would say, about grief. Just because Beau is the heron, is grieving a lot. So it is a very, in my opinion, and I know we talked about it, I think this world combining the Enigma with the Brit, it's a very dark romance, a little bit darker than I was used to reading Jodi's books. Which I loved. I was on the edge of my seat, and it seriously had so many twists and turns that left me like freaking speechless and wanting to know what the heck was going to happen. So it is such an honor to have her with us and talk to her about this amazing new dark world that she created, as well as her previous books. I know we're going to be talking about This Man. I do want to talk about the Royal series that she did. Josh is amazing. So we hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast, and sit back, grab some coffee, and let's get to it. Jodi, it's such an honor and a dream to have you here. I remember when we first started this podcast, and I mentioned it earlier, we always said we should try to like talk to Jodi, but it was a dream. So thank you so much for agreeing to be here with us. It is a dream
thank you for
true.
Having me.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, it's December now, isn't it? And then all of a sudden in December, you think, crap, I've got no Christmas presents yet.
Yes.
So yeah, trying to juggle work and family, and then all the things with, that Christmas brings. It's going to get interesting.
Yes. I always Christmas shop like the week of Christmas. So
don't. I usually do too, and I promise myself every year that I'm not going to be that person running around like an idiot on Christmas Eve buying presents. And I've actually done quite well, and I have been ordering things online, and then all of a sudden there was boxes everywhere and I didn't know what was in the boxes. So I literally had to unpack all the boxes to try and sort of remember what I've got. Yeah. I'll get there.
So it's like I mentioned earlier, we love your books. We love you. So thank you so much for being here with us. We did want to talk to you today about your books, The Enigma, which we freaking devoured, and we loved it. Yes. And
that
it
makes
is
me happy. It's a good job, isn't it? Could you imagine reading a book and then having to intermittently think it's crap?
No. Everything you write, it's phenomenal. So it was amazing. We did want to go back from the start a little bit and talk to you a little bit about how it was. How did you decide you wanted to be a writer? How did you go out and come up with the idea for your first book?
I became a writer by accident. Really. I spent many years daydreaming, and many people have said to me since all of this has happened that they always used to look at me and wonder what was going on in my mind. My auntie Valerie, my dear auntie Valerie, bless her, she said when I was a little girl I was always daydreaming, and now it all makes sense because I was always lost in other worlds. And I finally got to sort of my late 20s and decided to start writing down, what was going around in my head. And that's how Jessie Ward and This Man kind of evolved, little bit by little bit, until I got to the point where I started frantically making notes on what was then my BlackBerry, because we didn't have iPhones back then, or if they were around, I didn't have one. And then journal, I started writing in my journal, and then I just started writing, and it was almost like therapy for me. It felt like everything in my head suddenly, like the pressure was relieving, and it was kind of, I was putting it somewhere else rather than in my head. And I still to this day don't quite know how it exploded like it did. I feel like a bit of a fraud sometimes because many writers spend many years trying to accomplish something that I kind of feel like accomplished by pure accident. Right place, right time, right book, maybe, I don't know, but it's been a roller coaster for sure, and the best job. I mean, everyone, if you've got a job that doesn't feel like a job, then you've got the best job in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now I feel like I truly do have the best job in the world. Stressful at times, don't get me wrong, when I was writing on my own and no one knew I was writing, and the pressure wasn't there because you at that point no one knew who I was, and I didn't have a following or any readers even, and now I do. So the pressure's there, but I kind of try and stick to that rule that when I wrote This Man, I wrote it for myself, and it was off the wall, and it was a little bit probably bordering on the line of unacceptable behaviour from but I just went with it because I honestly didn't think anyone else would read it, so I went with it. And I try and stick to that kind of, when I'm, especially when I was writing the Brit and the Enigma, because there are certainly some very sketchy moments in both of those books that oh shit, am I writing this? Like, yeah, I'm gonna write it, I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna go, and I did. And yeah, I just try and stick with that because it's worked so far, so why not?
Your heroes are phenomenal. I can't decide, like, I guess because the first book I read of yours was The Forbidden. And
really?
Yes. I know everybody was like, read this man. I was like, and I remember I went to Barnes & Noble and I saw The Forbidden first, and I was reading the blurb and I was like, okay, I have to read The Forbidden. I read that in one night.
The Forbidden is actually probably, in terms of alpha, Jack is probably one of my most normal alphas. Yes. In terms of story, it's very, very, it's a trigger book, isn't it? It's one of those books that is going to be a trigger for many people. And that whole story for me was like a bit of a leap of faith, because I know in our reading community that books like The Forbidden are, some people will just, they'll shut it as soon as they find out what it's about. They'll shut the book and they won't even give it a chance, and that truly breaks my heart, because I do believe that you have to, there's three sides to every story. There's her side, his side, then there's the truth. And I just, those that read it and did stick with it, even though it was a trigger for them, I got so many messages and emails saying how happy they were they stuck with it, because it's not black and white. You know, there's a grey area, and that's the area that I wanted to focus on, that grey area. You know, people, I feel like I'm giving away a massive spoiler, but it's no big secret that Forbidden is about an affair. But they're, you know, it's not always black and white, and there are grey areas, and I was really passionate about getting that particular point across, and I was so delighted that so many people read it and saw what I was trying to achieve with it. So I'm very surprised it was your first book of mine. I feel
I loved it, and I still think about it.
Mine was actually This Man.
Oh well, that's most people's.
Yes, it was because I got into 50 Shades, and then I saw a lot of recommendations. They're like, if you love Christian, you will love Jesse. And so I picked up This Man, and oh my gosh, I think I read the series within 2 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I didn't do anything at all. I was just reading. And then I was like,
say, did you even get out of bed?
I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember I finished in 2 days.
I love it.
Yeah, Jesse is amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that it took me, you know, maybe 2 years to write it. People devoured it in 2 days.
Yes.
There's a lot of words in that story, so that's quite an achievement. But yeah, Jesse is he's something else, isn't he?
Yeah, he is special. So we know that your stories, they're all different. So how do you develop your plot and your characters?
I think I don't know whether I do it. I certainly don't mean to do it intentionally, but somehow over the course of this journey, my alphas in particular have become kind of the hub of most stories. And I do obviously want to make every story different. You don't want to, you know, become samey or even predictable. But I think one thing you can predict from me is an alpha that's going to be memorable, which is a massive compliment in a sense. You know, it's many of my readers it's like the alpha library. We started with Jesse, and we're on, you know, the latest being James Kelly from the Enigma, and every alpha is different. And I guess with every different alpha comes a different story, and that's what I always want to achieve. Every book and character has something memorable, something that readers seem to hone in on and stick with, whether that be, you know, Jesse and his peanut butter, or Jack and his, you know, giant strawberries, or whatever it is, Becca and his apples. And they're memorable. And generally most of my stories start with the alpha, because I have to make every man distinguishable, you know, or different from the last, and that's really bloody hard sometimes, because am I going to get to a point where, well, I've created every man possible, now what, you know? So yeah, starting with the alpha and the heroine is basically where I start, and generally they kind of take me on the journey. So with Danny Black, for example, I knew what I wanted and needed him to be, and his story kind of evolved around him, around his character. And I often get asked if, like, I plot stories, and I generally do initially, but your characters sometimes take you somewhere else, and you find yourself veering off course. So that happens quite often. So I generally just kind of start with the man and the woman, and then let them kind of guide me as to where their story is going, and that works best for me.
Well, it's amazing because every story you get a different vibe from it. Like you can read This Man and it's a completely different vibe from when you read The Brits. So it's like every story you're phenomenal. And it's like you create these stories in our head where it's like you literally put us in this world and you take us in this journey. Like the Enigma, I was on the edge of my seat.
I was on the edge of my seat with the Enigma. One of the things in it, to your point, you said it's like going on a journey, and that for me is one of the most important things. When everyone knows that women in particular read to escape, and for me it's so important that I can put my reader in that world and almost help them live the story with the characters. So I am always the heroine in my stories. I'm always the female lead, and I am always, although I'm getting older than some of them now, which sucks big time, but I generally I try to live the story with them. So then I can think, well, what would I do in this situation, and what would I say to that? And that's exactly what I want for my readers too. So when I hear feedback like that, that they saw things, they could have pictured things, they were there, they felt the feelings, that for me is my work here is done, in the words of Jessie Ward. I love that. That's exactly what I want to hear. So it makes my heart happy.
And how do you come up with your titles? Because I love your titles, like the Controversial Princess. That title for me is like one of the best ones.
Really?
That's the cover. I'm so obsessed with that cover. And like, how do you come up with your titles for each book?
So sometimes it's there at the very beginning. So the Brit was the Brit from the start. And it stayed the Brit. Sometimes I can get to the end of the story and think, shit, what am I going to call this? I don't know what I'm going to call it. There's nothing that's jumping out at me. And other times I'll get halfway through and think, that's what it is. There are times where it's been called something, and then by the end of the book, it's called something else. Or my publisher might say, let's brainstorm some other title ideas. So the Controversial Princess was always the Controversial Princess. From the very beginning, she was a controversial princess. So I thought, well, that's easy. This man, I can't even, I'd written Beneath, I'd finished Beneath before I'd even thought about what the title would be for this man. Just nothing was sticking. And in the book throughout, Ava refers to Jessie as this man a lot, and what is wrong with this man, or this man is crazy, or whatever. And then I was just like, this man, and I know it's a little bit kind of not your norm, but it worked. And he was this man, he became this man to me. And then there was others that, so Wicked Truths, for example, that actually was called Deceitful Truths to begin with. If you could see my title book, there's things in there. The Enigma, that was actually called The Darkness Within Him before it was called The Enigma. But because it was a follow-on from the Brit, it kind of just didn't work with the Brit. Although I loved the title, I felt like it needed to be something shorter and punchier. And then, of course, we've got the Resurrection that's coming in January. So with the Brit and the Resurrection, the Darkness Within Him in the middle kind of just didn't work. So I had to rethink that. And, of course, James is the Enigma. So I'm like, Danny's the Brit, so why don't we just go with the Enigma? So, yeah, thinking of titles sometimes is one of the most fun parts of writing a book. Writing a blurb, however, is the worst part ever.
Do you do that after you finish writing the book?
Yeah. Trying to, whenever anyone says, if my agent says or my publisher says we need to write the blurb, I just roll into a little ball and cry, because I can write, a whole chapter in a day that could be 5,000 words, but ask me to write 150 words for a blurb and I just want to die. It's just the worst thing ever. Because how can you surmise a whole story without giving away spoilers, making it sound really catchy and interesting? in such a small paragraph. It's so hard. There's people that do it for a living, so I need to find those people and pay them lots of money to write my blurbs.
Or do you choose your narrators for your audiobooks?
Yes, always. Although there was one that I didn't choose. The original Perfect Chaos narrator. There was a bit of there was cross wires, I think is the word. Cross wires, and it got narrated by someone that was amazing, but it wasn't Ty Christensen for Perfect Chaos, so it actually got re-recorded. Ultimately I choose the narrators. The Brit, actually, I'm listening to, not the Brit, sorry, the Enigma I'm listening to at the moment, which is releasing hopefully in a couple of weeks, as soon as I've approved it. And yeah, I know there's a lot of people waiting for that.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I have to ask you, because I know when you did, you guys filmed The Protector, it came out to say that I might pronounce his name right. Dermot? I can't pronounce his name. Yes, it's the audiobook voice of The Protector. Did you know that whenever he got casted?
Well, I knew when he got casted. It was so strange because, so obviously The Protector came out in 2016, I think it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Dermot Murtagh auditioned for the audiobook, and as soon as I heard his voice, I just thought, yeah, he's gruff, he's got that manly thing going on. Jake, done deal. Yeah, that was it. And I knew Dermot's name at the time, but he actually narrates under a pseudonym, which is Owen McMahon, and weirdly McMahon is my maiden name, so that was all a little bit like weird. And then fast forward 3 years, Tosca sent me an audition and said, this guy has auditioned for Jake. And we'd seen lots of auditions at this point. And there does come a point during the audition process where you're feeling a little bit kind of crushed because like, oh God, are we ever going to find the right person to play this part? And Tosca, she was actually in a taxi, and she WhatsApped called me and she said, I've just had an audition in. I need you to see it straight away. Watch it now. I'm sending it. So she sent it over, and obviously I didn't know what Dermot stroke Owen McMahon, who narrated The Protector, looked like. So when he came on the sort of the VT, and I'm looking at him and his name comes up at the bottom and he says his name, I'm thinking, why does that sound familiar? Where have I seen this guy? So then of course I Google him, and he was in like the Vikings and Dracula and all kinds of things. And then halfway through, I thought, oh my God. And then I go to my emails because I'm like scratching through my emails to find like I just typed in Dermot's name into my search bar of my Outlook, and it came up, The Protector audiobook. And I'm like, And I rang Tosca back and I said, he narrated the audiobooks. He knows the story. That's why he's so bloody amazing, because he knew Jake Sharp. He read the whole story. He knew the character, and he was just perfect. And I was just like, yeah, hire him, do it now.
That's awesome. Because I know when that you guys talked about it, whenever you guys did the premiere, everybody was freaking out.
I know, because he's also Irish. He's got a very strong Irish accent, although he's obviously not in the movie or on the narrators. And that's the mark of an amazing actor, stroke narrator. They do incredible accents. So he completely fooled me, because when I actually met him in person for the first time, he was Irish, and I was like, this is completely blowing my mind, Plus his name is McMahon, which is my maiden name, so it's a common name in Ireland, not so much here. But yeah, it was almost like just fate, I suppose. I think our paths kind of just were always meant to cross, and they did.
That's awesome. So you did mention a little bit earlier how your alphas are very alpha. You have Jessie, who is they're all rainbows and color pink and everything.
Totally reasonable man. Totally reasonable man.
So you have Jessie, who is this possessive, I'm gonna say a little bit stalkerish alpha. You have Josh from the Royal series, who is total alpha. And then you have the Brit, the Enigma. How do you come up, and where's your inspiration to coming up with these totally hot alphas?
This is it. So, and I always ask myself this, because actually, would I, like Jesse Ward especially, some of the things he did and some of the things he said, like, how would I react to that? Like, if a man said that to me in real life, I'd probably slap him and tell him to F off, maybe. Yeah. You just would, wouldn't you? But I think, like, the shock element in this man especially, and that you paint a picture of this complete god that women fall in love with, you kind of get away with it a bit more in books, don't you, than you do in real life. But I don't know. I sometimes think the more eccentric, the better. I do write things and wonder whether I'm perhaps pushing the boundaries too far, but after Jessie Ward, I think I could write anything and get away with it. So I just go with it. They've all got their quirks in their own way. They're all alpha-ish, very alpha-ish. They're all got a certain element of cockiness, confidence. But ultimately what they are broken men who need fixing. And the women, let's not forget the women, have to be strong women to take on these alphas. And that's one of the most fun parts, and something that kind of is a common denominator throughout all of my stories. They're strong, confident, cocky alpha males, but it's all an exterior. And actually, when you dig further down, what you actually find is a broken man desperate to be fixed. And he finds a woman, falls for a woman. Generally, the men always fall the hardest out of my men and women. And then part of the story, not all of the story, but part of the journey of the two characters is finding redemption or peace or forgiveness or whatever it might be. Obviously around the crux of the story, whatever that might be. Artful Lies is a treasure hunt. This man is a sex manor, and the protector is, the kidnapping and bodyguard element, the forbidden, the affair. But so there's the main story, there's the man, the broken man, the strong woman, and it all just kind of comes together.
And I like that you said that about your heroines. And it's true, like, yeah, you are known for your sexy alphas, but you're also the author that writes their heroines very strong. Like, I feel like
that's a matter of opinion. That's a matter of opinion. There are many people who do not think my women are strong. They think they're doormats. And to those people, I would simply say, any woman that takes on a man like Becca Hunt, Jessie Ward, Miller Hart has to be strong. They have to be strong to take them on, to stick around and know that past all of these alpha, exterior, outlandish qualities is goodness. And they want a bit of that. And they know that they can get to that, and they can fix these men. And love does crazy things, doesn't it? It does crazy things. And, it makes the world go round. Strong women.
I love your heroines. Like, I just keep thinking.
You.
And I know for the His True Queen, that duet, it was I loved her. And
she was fierce.
Yes. There's a scene every time I think about that book. There's a scene when Josh comes, when she first gets engaged and she has the ring and he goes total alpha. And I love her because he pushes her to be what she's meant to be, and that's rule over what she is supposed to rule over. And that's why I think of your Herons, and I think of her specifically too, because it's like, yeah, the alphas play a big part of the Herons ruling on what they're supposed to.
And that was something that was very different about the Controversial Princess. She, although Josh was a Hollywood star, bit of a playboy, bit of a womanizer, she was the daughter of the King of England. So, you know, that kind of trumped him. And what he loved was the fierceness and strength in Adeline. What he hated and loathed was that the institution she was a part of meant they couldn't be together. So it was for Josh in particular, it was a balance between keeping her the way he loved her, but also freeing her from what was basically, she was a caged bird and desperate to be free from, you know, the expectations of royal life and arranged marriages and all of that. But giving her what she needed at the same time. And she needed to be strong to conquer that world. She needed to be strong, and he needed to make sure that he maintained that strength in her.
Will you ever write any more royal
It was writing The Controversial Princess probably took the most research of any book I've written. Because like I've said to you previously, getting a reader to be a part of the world you're creating is so important to me. So to make it authentic, I needed to know exactly how things really work in royal life, you know, even little quirky things, you know, whether that be, you know, I read somewhere that one of the Queen of England's signs, if she is ready to leave, she puts her handbag on the table, and that tells people I am ready to go. And it's almost like a code. So it was so fascinating reading things like that, because then I had to create things. And with Adeline and her bodyguard Damon, who everyone loved, he was just such a good man. It was the thumbs up, thumbs down, you know, they had their little signals. He knew exactly what she needed when she needed it by what, you know, movements, body language. And that was really fun to create. But also it's so complicated. The royal family, you know, the history, the tradition, it's so complicated. And I've got a book somewhere literally with a family tree. I had to make a family tree in the end, because he's the heir apparent, and then who can, you know, if he's not around, then who's next? And the line of succession was just burning my brain. But again, fun. But everyone's asking for Eddie's book, Adeline's brother. I think there's always one secondary character in all of my books that people scream for, like a kind of follow-up. What do you call it? Yeah. So this man, it was Kate and Sam.
We were literally talking about Kate yesterday.
But I feel like Kate and Sam, kind of their story was kind of told throughout the 4 books of this man, whereas Drew not so much. So that's why I wrote All I Am, because you know, I felt like Drew needed a bit of their time. What else was there? There's Eddie, obviously, in The Controversial Princess. There's Brad in The Brit. Everyone screams at him. Then there's Callum and Jess in Gentleman's Sinner. Everyone wanted a story about them. And Cassie in One Night. everyone was calling for a story on that as well. So yeah, I've created so many characters now, each with their own quirks and personalities. I could literally go back through any of my books and think, yeah, okay, let's write a story about you. Maybe I'll do that one day when I'll, at the moment I've got too many new characters needing their stories told. So
well, I'm crossing my fingers for Eddie's.
Are you?
Love him.
Eddie. Poor Eddie. He was a little bit broken, wasn't he? He's a broken man just waiting to be fixed.
Come on, Jodi. Let's fix him.
I know. I need to find a very outlandish female to take him on. Yeah, maybe a stripper or something really, really terrible because he's a prince.
That would be good.
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe one day.
So just wondering, from all of the books that you've written, from your alpha heroes, who is your favorite book boyfriend?
Oh, pang! That's a terrible question.
I know.
Ask that. That's naughty. Now I wish I'd have asked for a list of the questions because I would have crossed that one off. No. I get asked that a lot, and it's just impossible. It's impossible to answer because every book I write, while I'm writing it, it's the most favourite book that I've written. It's simple as that, because you're so invested in the story and the characters at that time. They're your favourite at that moment. So James currently is, actually that's a lie, the guy who I'm writing now, who I can't tell you his name is, he's my favourite. But ultimately, at the time I'm writing a book, that's who my favourite alpha is, because they're new and they're just like, it's so, each book I write, I feel like I've moved onto another level, whether that be another book added to my library, another alpha added to the alpha library. I always feel quite amazed that my brain's managed to give me so many more words for another story.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that sometimes, and I'm pretty sure, in fact I know that every writer has the same feelings of panic that perhaps one day your brain will suddenly stop giving you words and new characters and new storylines and plots, and it's very real. It's a very real worry. So every word and every character just feels like an achievement. And hopefully my brain doesn't stop working.
For your character or your heroes, I've noticed that a lot of them start with the letter J. So it's like, how do you pick your names? And is that planned? Is that something that you...
No, it just happened. And weirdly, it weren't until, when did we get to? I think it was when we got to Jack. So there was Jesse, then there was Miller, then there was Jake, then there was Drew, and then there was Jack. So out of 5 alphas, 3 of them began with the letter J. And then, of course, we got Josh, and also James in the Enigma. Am I missing any J's?
I think that's it.
So there was Jack in the Forbidden, there was Josh, number 6, number 7 was Theo, number 8 was Ryan, number 9 was Ty, number 10 was Becca, number 11 was Danny, and number 12 is James. So yes, there is 5 or 6 J's out of 12 alphas. Half of them begin with the letter J. And actually the one I'm writing, the one I'm just finishing, begins with J as well. Yeah. And my husband's name's Jamie, so there's a J. Just J's everywhere.
You like the letter J.
Maybe I do. Maybe it's just my letter. I mean, I'm Jodi, so yeah. I'm going to run out of J's though, aren't I? I'm going to run out of boys' names beginning with J.
So going back a little bit for your one night trilogy. I remember right when I finished reading This Man, everyone was recommending also the one night trilogy, and then I was like, I'm quite scared to read it because I don't want that hero to win me
replace
over.
Jessie.
Yes.
I know.
So
this is the worst thing as a writer. It's the worst thing to happen.
Yes, and so I was like, I don't know. So I tweeted it, and then I remember you replying to that tweet, and you said, "Just give Miller a chance, and I'm pretty sure you will love Miller also." And so I ended up picking up the trilogy, and I loved how you made Miller an escort, because a lot of books that we've read, it's always the heroine that's the escort, and this one it's the vice versa. And I love that you did that. So so how did you come up with the plot?
Miller, so off the back of This Man, obviously, which was hugely successful, there was a moment where I was sitting thinking, holy shitballs, what the heck do I do now? Because how do you top Jessie? And I remember I was I think I was partway through Confessed, and Miller came to me. He just came to me because I think Jessie's so expressive. He's so outlandish. He's so in your face. He's there, isn't he? He's there. You can't miss him. Miller he's reserved. He's quite impassive. And it's all part of his history. It's all part of his character. Why he is like he is obviously explained throughout the story. And I just love the notion, the idea that I could make a man make people, or hopefully make people, love an alpha, a man who was so hard to figure out, who was who appeared and was apparently emotionless and actually quite brusque and quite rude. It's almost like he was soulless in the way he put himself across. He didn't give anything away in his facial expressions, which made it very hard, obviously, because it's written from Livy's point of view, explaining to a reader what she is seeing when she's basically seeing the same thing constantly, because he is so impassive and he doesn't give anything away. And his words were almost quite straight down the line. He didn't give her much, really. And then slowly he started to let go of, all of these things. The walls, the bricks started, coming down. And I remember writing his very first smile, and that was just such a poignant moment for his story, because ultimately he didn't really have much to smile about. And just that silly, simple little smile was such a poignant moment in that story, because of his history and because of who he was. He's out of all of my alphas, Miller, I have a particular soft spot for that very reason, because they're all out there. And although Miller's got his quirks and his little, the words that he would use, he's the most quiet of all of my alphas. But weirdly, almost the most expressive by the end, if that makes any sense at all. I loved writing that story. It was almost a bit of a relief after the intensity of Jessie Ward. Miller was almost like he was a relief, because he was so different to Jessie, and he had to be different to Jessie, because you don't ever want to write a story and then follow it up with another story and try and create the same thing.
Yes.
Because that's never going to work. So it was very important to make his story very different. The escort thing that just came naturally along the way. I needed his history. He needed to have something that to shut down from, basically, and that's what made him like he was. He just shut down from it, and that he could not change that in any outside world. Whoever he met, that's who they got.
So, well, I really hope you will go back into that world.
When I wrote the epilogue of One Night Unveiled, I sobbed my way through it. Because he finally had everything that he never even dared consider he could possibly have. And he just, even though he still had his quirks and his massive OCD, his particular ways, Livy understood it. And when I talk about strong women, to withstand that, you love someone for who they are and you don't try and change them. She didn't want to change Miller because he's so unique and so special, and they called him the special one, didn't they? Yes. So yeah, when I wrote that epilogue, I was just like, my heart was so happy. And then the thought of, because of course, if I revisit that story, it can't just be about them being happy and living everyday happy normal life, because no one wants to read that. You got to inject some sort of drama, and I just don't know whether I can do it to him.
No more pain.
No more pain, no. Although I did it to Jessie, didn't I? So
yes.
Yeah. Oops.
Touching about Jessie, we know This Man, it was optioned by Netflix, and it's going to become a movie, and we're so excited to see it. We're so excited to see this Jessie Ward come to life. It's going to be so much fun. So we know so many readers are excited, looking for it. Like, so many asked us to ask questions about This Man movie. One of them being, and I know that you said you wrote the script for This Man. Is that
I did.
correct?
I wrote the first script, and I did put this online. I can't believe how many people did it. I wrote the first script, but it got rewrote by a professional script writer because it was too long. And I couldn't detach myself from, this is the thing with screenwriting, it's just a completely different world to writing a novel. And what you got in screenwriting is basically the basics, what they say, what they do, blah, 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 because you rely on the actors to take that and put their stamp on it. So yeah, I wrote the first script, but actually it was pretty much just This Man novel. So a professional script writer had to come in and have a play with it. So the final script is not written by me. I can't take credit for that at all. No, that was written by a professional script writer.
So that's what I was going to ask you. What's the difference between writing a screenplay to writing a book, especially a book now that you've written years ago?
So This Man, to give you an idea of context, so This Man is 500 odd pages, I think. So 500. It's a long novel. I write long novels, which of course makes it even more hard to get into script. I think the average romance is around, could be anywhere from 70 to 90,000 words, the average. Mine are an average of about 130, 140. So like they're big ass books. So when it comes to putting them into a script for a movie, it's even harder to condense it all down. So I started, when I wrote the script for This Man, I went through and highlighted all the things that absolutely had to be in there. because I knew that if they weren't, then people would say, oh, that's my favourite bit. And this is another problem that I had. There were so many favourite bits. Even bits that really didn't move the story on, but became famous just because of the words or the circumstances or what Jessie did or whatever. They're scenes that I know hardcore This Man fans are going to want to see. So that was the first thing, to highlight everything that needed to be in there, which was a lot. And you just take the dialogue that needs to be in there, the actions that need to be in there, and you put it in a script of basically 100 pages. So you go from 500 pages to 100 pages. And that is, like, for an author, pretty much impossible. And I remember seeing the Protector script and thinking, oh my God, they've literally hacked it to nothing, because the Protector was like 450 pages, and suddenly it was a 100-page script. And I'm thinking, well, there just literally must be everything missing from it, but when you actually look closely, and what you need to train your mind to remember is that with a script where Jessie has a cheeky smile or a cocky smile or a wink or any of those little things that make that scene, you don't have it. You can have half a page of Ava's inner dialogue, inner monologue, surmising what's going on and what Jessie's doing and what she thinks about that. That's not going to be in the script, because all you're going to get is the actress portraying that scene, telling you with a facial expression or something else exactly what she's thinking. So that's the hardest thing for an author, is to remember that your actors are going to tell the viewer everything they need to know. Like the words in a book tell a reader exactly what they need to know. So it's hard to get your head around. I don't know whether I'll ever make it as a screenplay writer at all. I think I should probably stick to novels because I like all the words.
What scene are you most excited about to see from this man come to screen?
All of them. There's so many iconic scenes, aren't there? I mean, the meat is just, both of their reactions being quite taken aback by each other is quite high up there. I'm such a sadist. I think of all the things like the scene where he asks her how loud she's going to scream, and the first time he gives her the countdown, and when he cuts her dress up, and when he wrestles her into a jumper, all of those scenes that have readers going, what the hell is this man doing? They're the scenes that I want to see played out, for sure.
I've always been wondering, when you wrote this man, do you have a muse at all? Like any actors that you have in your head?
No. And I'm very glad, actually, because I fear that if I was if I did have a muse and I was to say this is who my Jessie was, I would be hung. Because everyone has their own ideal Jessie.
Yeah.
And I have to let that happen. I've seen some very spiky comments and arguments online from where someone said, here's my Jessie, and someone's gone, no. And it gets really heated. Really heated. And like, people are passionate about, their book boyfriends and what they look like. And some people have exactly like, I remember seeing someone post David Gandy for Jessie. And although David Gandy is a very beautiful human being, He's nothing like I described Jesse to be. I mean, he's blue hair, blue-eyed, dark-haired. And Jesse is green eyes, dirty blonde hair. But this woman said, well, he's every book boyfriend. You know, every book I read, David Gandy is my alpha. Fair enough. Like, absolutely. This is the problem when you're casting, though, because people have thought of who their Jesse is, whether that be Jesse Pavelka, he's one of the most popular choices. Charlie Hunnam is another. David Gandy again. So the variety of men is just absolutely vast, and that makes it all the more terrifying for me when we're casting. Yeah, because I'm
readers
never
are
make
very
everyone happy.
Readers are very, very protective and possessive of Jesse, because it's like you said online, it's like they all have this image of who he looks like. So I'm very excited to see who you guys cast as Jesse. I'm like, I bet you're like, you're excited, but it's a little bit nerve-wracking.
I'll be hiding in a cupboard with a crate of wine on that day.
So going back a little bit to the Enigma, I know for Gentleman's Sinner, I believe that dark romance, I loved it. I remember when I first started Gentleman's Sinner, I was on the edge of my seat. But I feel like the Enigma and the Brit are a little bit darker than what you usually write.
Yeah.
So for the Enigma, how did you come up with that whole series, like that whole world? Because it, like I said, it's a little bit darker than what we're used to you writing.
Yeah, so Danny Black evolved. His story, I honestly, Gentleman's Sinner was probably, I mean, there's a touch of darkness in many of my books, whether that be the history of the man, his story, or whatever it might be. Gentleman's Sinner just felt like a little bit darker, but then when I started writing the Brit, I realized that actually I'd not even scuffed the corner of darkness. And I didn't know whether I'd be any good at it, but I kind of went with it because that's what I do. And it ended up being quite gruesome. There are gruesome parts to it. But Danny Black is out there. He is who he is. He's unapologetic, and he is quite in your face. I would say gangsterist, mafia, you know, it's that darkness. Yeah. He's brutal. James was a bit more understated in his brutality, whereas Danny wanted everyone to know who he was. It was a status symbol. His name was a status symbol. His position of power was a status symbol. James was under the radar. He was way more understated. He didn't want everyone to know who he was. In fact, it was very important that no one knew who he was. So that they were very different characters in that sense, but the worlds just blended together very easily. And The Resurrection, which is the third book in this series, which is out in January, it's probably the most fun I've had.
So for the Enigma, for Beau, it was a lot of, she was grieving. There was a lot of, revenge that she was looking for. She wanted answers. So how was it to where, because I felt that James, like you said, he was more under the radar. He didn't want to be out there known. But how was it that you took this heroine who's grieving and created this hero who is dark, secretive, and have them just mesh?
Yeah. So one of the lines in the book, which has become And I knew it would. Sometimes you just write a line and you think readers are going to grab that one and they're going to run with it. Darkness entices darkness. And I think that is the overarching, to James and Beau in particular. Beau is so lost in grief and hate. And James, again, although Beau's hate and grief is way more recent, James is historically been a long time. That's what ultimately brings them together, is their equal hatred and equal grief for losses they have both suffer. Ultimately is what brings them together. And she's an ex-cop, he is a mass murderer. Really, you can't sugarcoat it. That's what he is. If I can get readers to fall in love with a mass murderer, then I feel like I'm seriously winning. So hearing the feedback on the Enigma has been incredible, because of course there's always going to be that shit, I've just written a book about a mass murderer and I want readers to love him. But he is the ultimate anti-hero, as with Danny Black. Danny Black, he slapped Rose within within half hour of meeting her. But it's like I say about every gasp, jaw-dropping moment that happens in any of my books happens for a reason. It happens for a reason. There's a very good reason why he slapped her face, and she knew it, and readers knew it as well. But at the time it was like, what? And many people, I'm sure, probably shut the book and thought, well, I can't read that. But it's like every book I write, you've got to get to the end, because even if there's moments in it that you question and you're unsure about, you have to get to the end for it to make sense to you.
Kind of, I have to say, I was telling Jan yesterday that I feel like James is somewhat like Jesse in a way. The way how he's always controlling, or like he was like, no, you stay at my house, all this stuff. I feel like there's a way how they're almost like the same to me.
I was very aware of that when I was writing the Enigma. I did think to myself, I almost feel like he's very Jesse-ish. But unlike Jesse, he never demanded anything. He never demanded she do anything. He would say, this is going to happen. And she would say, no, it's not. And he would say, okay, then. And then he would step back and then it would happen. Yeah. Because he knew her. He knew what she needed. And he just knew. It's like one of the scenes in the book where he basically says, will you come here with me? And she says no. And he says, okay. And then he goes and buys her address anyway and has it sent to her house. And she's like, but I said no. And he knows that she's going to go. He knows she's going to go. He reads her and he doesn't enforce anything, whereas Jesse would be like, you are coming, and he'd put Ava in the car and he would drive there and probably drag her into the opera house. James is like, okay, you're not coming, and that would be that. But he would make all of the necessary actions, like buying her a dress, because he knew that she would be coming.
For those sexy, steamy scenes, it's kind of like BDSM-ish because he ties her up and everything. Do you do research for those, or how do you write those kind of scenes?
Well, there's a certain element of research you have to do, because you have to make sure things are physically possible. But I do a lot of sketching. So it's trying to figure out. So with James, for example, in his bedroom, there is a certain apparatus that I allude to and talk about and describe, and making sure that everything that happens around that particular piece of equipment is possible, and that reader can visualize what's happening. That's the extent of my research. Yeah, in a nutshell. Do I have all the sex my characters do is the question? No, I don't. That's it.
When you're writing an emotionally draining scene, it could be a sad scene, a sexy scene, or a very dark scene. How do you prepare for that?
There's no denying you have to be in the right mood to write. And there are certain scenes that are particularly taxing and exhausting. I remember writing a post many months ago on social media, and I just finished writing the very first sex scene in the Enigma, which, if you've read it, you'll know is not only long, but really intense, because they have to go through a range of emotions to get to where they needed to be. And I remember writing the post. Once I'd finished, I was exhausted. It absolutely drained me. And I don't think I appreciated. I knew it was going to be quite significant. First sex scenes in books always are. But I knew this one was going to be probably the most intense one that I'd ever written, between two characters, first sex scene. Not just because of how long it was, but why it was happening and what was happening during it. I think it took me about 3 days to write that scene. Yeah. And then I had to have about 3 days off.
Do you write in order from like chapter 1, chapter 2, or do you write chapter 1 this day, I'm going to skip to the end today?
No, I write in order, because I never know whether what I've got planned for the end is actually how it's going to end. There's been many times where I've got halfway through a book and I've thought this is how the book's going to end, and then all of a sudden I'm going off in a completely different direction. So yeah, I generally write in order.
So when you're writing the Enigma, who was harder to write, James or Beau?
I felt like I knew Beau better, because I knew it was obvious what she was feeling, why she was feeling it. Whereas with James, he was dealing with grief in an entirely different way at this stage anyway. Obviously, bearing in mind this is, a long time after he's suffered his loss. So he's gone through many of the emotions that perhaps Beau is only going through now. So what I had with James was a man who I'd skipped all of those emotions and was at the man he is now. Whereas Beau was obviously like she was because of what had happened, and it was very early. It was a fresh grief, quite new. So it was actually James that was the hardest to write, because I had to almost preempt the past 10 years that got him to where he is now, and why he's like he is now, and justifying why he is like he is now.
I know you said The Resurrection is the third book in this series. I'm so excited for it. Is there what else do you have planned for next year?
I have a historical romance coming out in the summer, which is new for me. Very excited about that one. I also have something else that I'm not allowed to tell anyone about, which I know is, people hate it when people vague. I've not vague posted about this, but there is something in the works that that I'm
I'm excited.
beside myself about. But
I love your surprise releases, though. It's like
my team don't. My team hates surprise releases. Every time, like, my publicist always says to me, "Please tell me that we're going to put this one up for pre-order," and I'm like, "No, I'm just going to wake up one morning and think, yeah, I'm going to release it today." They're the best releases. Honestly, it's so stressful releasing a book, and in the run-up to releasing a book, the pressure that is there to post about it, to remind people about it. And I'm not a very good salesperson. I'm not very good at selling myself. One of my least favorite things to do is to tell people that I have a book for pre-order. It's like, I'm sure they know this, but I'm going to have to say it again. Yeah.
Is there a trope that you haven't written yet, but you want to write it?
Well, I've kind of covered many of them in one way or another. I've done the royal, the enemies to lovers, the age gap, office romance, anti-hero, mafia. I feel like I've covered quite a broad range, and as soon as this interview is finished, I'll go away and think, yes, shit, that's the one I want to write. And I'll email you and let you know.
Okay, so before we let you go, we do this little game with authors. How well do you know your books?
Oh God. You didn't prepare me for this.
No. So we picked 6 quotes from Goodreads, and to see if you know which book they're from.
How many people have you done this with?
At least 3. Was it 3 or 2?
3 or 4.
Did they? Okay. How many books did each of those people have?
6.
Well,
also.
we picked 6 for everyone.
I know, but if those people only had 6 books, that makes it a lot easier for them.
They actually have quite a few books too.
Good. Tell me they've got dozens of books. Yeah, this could be really embarrassing, couldn't it? Okay, come on then.
Okay, so this is the first one. Given how much sex we have, I'd say you're the majority shareholder of power in this relationship.
That's Jessie to Ava.
Yes, it's Jessie, but do you know from which book?
Oh, that's a cruel one. I think it's Beneath.
Yes.
That is before they've just danced. They've just danced to I think they've danced to Pumped Up Kicks, actually. Yeah. Okay.
The next one. Aren't you prepared to fight for it? To fight for happiness? To fight for me? He asked. Because I'm ready to fight for you.
That is The Controversial Princess.
Yes.
Oh, God, I'm getting a bit sweaty over here, guys.
I believe that you're the master of your own destiny. Your own decisions and actions are what influence your life course.
That's Olivia, One Night. One Night. I think it's Promised.
Yes.
Yes. Oh God. Oh, wow. Okay.
The 4th quote, you're my home now. Wherever you are, that's my home.
Leave Me Breathless.
Are you sure?
No. Is it? It's not, is it?
It's not.
Oh shit. Wait. You're my home now, wherever you are. I know it. Sorry, fucking annoying. Right there. Oh, is it the Protector?
Yes.
Oh, what an idiot. Of course it is. Oh, okay, next.
My love for her holds me prisoner. Her faith.
Gentleman Sinner.
Yes. Yes. That
My
was fast.
my faith in her leaves me in awe.
Yes.
She is my peace, my cure, my love. Or
Yeah.
something like that.
I love
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
The last question. Everything I fought for could be wiped out the second I give in to my desire. I never truly appreciated the powerful desire is.
That's Danny in the Brit.
Yes.
See, you got
Oh
them
God. See? Oh God. Get me more. Get me more.
Well, thank you so much, Jodi, for joining us. I know you're going to be in Book Bonanza next year.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited because I'm going to be there. So I'm so excited to meet you in person.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited for the resurrection in January.
Thank you.
And
thank you for having me.
Thank you. And like we said, the Enigma is amazing. And we hope you have an amazing weekend.
Yeah, you too, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
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 It was an honor. It's a dream. I keep saying it because it's true. Love talking to Jodi. Love her books. Love her heroes. Love her characters. It is truly an honor that we had her here chatting with us today. And if you guys haven't read it yet, definitely pick up the Enigma. You could read it as a standalone. I would recommend reading the Brit first. That way you can sort of dive into this world and be prepared by when you get the Enigma. They're long books, but trust me, when you sit down and you pick it up, you won't be able to put it down. You're just going to keep reading and reading. The Enigma is phenomenal. I loved it. I mean, just look at the cover. By looking at the cover, even without reading the blurb, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm picking this one up. Like that for the Brit and the Enigma, I love those covers. There's something so dark, intimidating, sexy, and named like you just want to pick them up. So definitely pick up the Enigma. It is available now. Pre-order the Resurrection. That one comes out in January. And then, so make sure you're following Jodi on her Instagram. That way you don't miss out on any information that she puts out whenever the Resurrection goes live, or if she has any other surprise releases. Her username on Instagram is Jodi_Ellen_Malpas. So make sure you're following her so you keep up with her releases or any surprises that she has, as well as updates with this man. I'm very I want to know who they're going to cast as Jesse. Like, I need to know. It's going to be very interesting. So make sure you're following her. That way you don't miss out on anything. And if you have any questions for us, just let us know to celebrate this wonderful interview that we had with the amazing and queen of alpha heroes. That's how we should refer to her, as queen of alpha heroes. To celebrate this interview, we're going to have a giveaway. So we have a signed paperback of this man, Gentleman Sinner, that we want to give away. And we're also going to give away the Enigma. So to enter, just make sure you're following us on Instagram so you don't miss out on that post. It's going to be going up tomorrow. Today, when this podcast interview goes live, it's going to be Wednesday. So it's going to be up on Thursday. So make sure you're following us to win a signed copy of Gentleman Sinner, This Man, and the Enigma. Just want to put it out there. The Enigma is not going to be signed. So the only signed copies is This Man and Gentleman Sinner. But for a chance to win those 3 paperbacks, head over to our Instagram. Our handle is @BookBuzzPodcast, and just enter on the post that we're going to put up. And then, like I said, if you have any questions for us, just message us on Instagram, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.